Hi guys, it's Smiles again. Going to do a quick wrap up of all the Amonkhet spoilers that have been released in the last 24 hours. I've kind of split them up into groups by colour to help us go through them a bit more easily. So we'll look at the white cards first of all. We've got Sacred Cat, which is a 1/1 for 1 with lifelink, so that's always good. And then we have the ability to embalm, to pay 1 white, return it back from the graveyard. Again, it'll be a zombie cat with lifelink, which is quite good. Kind of like a Doom Traveller type deal here. I can see it's getting some play, maybe in some budget modern token decks or Soul Sisters decks. Then we have In Orketra's Name, which is Orketra is going to be the white god pictured in the background here. We haven't seen her card yet, but this is quite interesting because it's a white card that gives +2/+1 to zombies in particular, and +1/+1 to other creatures. Proportionally out of what we've seen so far, there are a lot of white cards that have Embalm, so it makes sense for this to be in white. I don't see how it's going to fit into other formats, but maybe these cards are going to sort of make zombie decks dip into white in other formats. Then we've got another white Embalm card, Anointed Priest. This is kind of like a bad Soul Warden. It's 2 mana, it's a 1/3. I mean, it has Embalm, which is good because it can come back later, but it only gives you life when a token enters, and that's only when it's under your control. This is probably going to be an auto-include in any Embalm-focused decks in Standard, but if you're not focusing on Embalm, this card's probably not going to be very good, depending on the other cards that are printed. Maybe some Servo Creation decks, using Ether Revolt cards could be good. I can see this maybe going into some sideboards for Soul Sisters decks in Modern. The ability to bring it back from the graveyard means that you don't have to worry too much about removal. It's a 1/3, so against the weenie decks it has some blocking potential early on in the game. Let's move on to the black cards. So first of all, we've got Nest of Scarabs. So whenever you put a -1/-1 counter on a creature, you create that many 1/1 black insect creature tokens. I think this is just further proof that we're going to see a lot of cards in Amonkhet that allow you to put -1/-1 counters on things. But also in Modern we have cards like Black Sun Zenith, or just mechanics like Proliferate, which will work quite well with Nest of Scarabs. Then we've got Open Heart, 2 mana sorcery speed discard spell, hits anything that's non-legendary, non-land, which is means it has a lot of targets to hit. I'd say you're almost guaranteed to hit something with this every time you cast it, but for 2 mana, most of us are used to spending 1 black to make your opponent discard a card. But bear in mind, in Standard right now we have Harsh Scrutiny and we have Transgress the Mind. I've actually seen some discard decks in Standard already without this card that use Reality Smasher as a win condition, so maybe this card gives that deck a boost. Then we have Destined and Lead. The first part of it is Destined, 2 mana, target creature gets +1/+0 and gains indestructible until the end of turn. Then we have Lead, which is an Aftermath section of the card, which means it can only be cast from the graveyard. All creatures able to block target creature this turn do so. I think a lot of this card's power comes from the fact that you can cast both on the same turn if you have 6 mana open, allowing you to make one of your creatures attack with +1/+0 and indestructible, so it's going to stay alive. It's going to have more potential of killing the creatures that are going to block it, and you can force all of the enemy creatures to block it as well. Alternatively, this card can give you some great tempo. It can allow you to save a creature and win an unfavourable combat, without your opponent expecting it. And I think the best way to use lore cards like Lead is to target a token or something like a 1/1. You don't care if it dies or not. You're just going to attack with it so it can die and get blocked by all the enemy creatures, and then it means that all your other creatures sneak their damage through. I'm actually expecting this card to see some play in Standard. Also, for those of you that are interested, this cycle of 2-part cards in Amonkhet has actually heralded a huge change to the Magic rules. When this card's on the stack, it will have a converted mana cost on the stack of whichever side is being cast at the time. When it is in a graveyard, the converted mana cost of the card will be the combined converted mana costs of both sides. And then obviously with the fuse cards that we have, like Beck and Call, if both sides are on the stack at the same time, again, the converted mana cost is equal to both sides combined. In all fairness, I think this is a more concise ruling for the 2-part cards, but what this unfortunately does is it takes away our ability to cast fuse cards for free in Modern. There are a lot of decks in Modern, so in Legacy I think that we're using Karizev's Expertise, Brain in the Jar, Isochron Scepter, etc. to cast some fuse cards for free, so they're casting like a 9 mana card in total for free. To be fair, that was not really conducive to a balanced game, but at the same time, that combo is going to be sorely missed because there was a lot of fun to play. Moving on to the red cards, we have Hazoret the Fervent. This is a 4 mana 5/4 with haste and indestructible. However, it can only attack or block if you have 1 or fewer cards in hand. It also has an activated ability which is conducive to that restriction, which is 2 colourless, 1 red, discard a card. Hazoret deals 2 damage to each opponent. Obviously, being a god, this is a legendary creature. This is going to make a great burn commander. On top of that, I think it has potential to see play in Modern in some burn decks. I think maybe a 1 or a 2 of. It gives you the ability to spend a lot of mana later on in the game if you top deck it, and also the activated ability means that you can keep your hand empty to keep attacking with it. It's got indestructible, so it survives a lot of removal, and on top of that, it can any dead draw like a land from a top deck can just be turned into 2 damage. Depending on what other cards are printed in Amonkhet, I think this could see some play in Standard. It definitely has a lot of potential. I just don't think the cards are there right now. I haven't done too much research on that, but I'm definitely going to look into it. Then we have Amonkhet Crasher. It's a 3 mana 3/2 with haste. When it attacks, you can exert it to prevent a target creature from blocking this turn. For those of you that have been playing since Khans of Tarkir, this is kind of a functional reprint of Goblin Heel Cutter, which was an incredible limited card. I actually saw it played in some constructed decks also. I think this is a card that is definitely going to be underestimated. If you're in red in a draft and you see this card come up, I would definitely pick it. We've also seen Flameblade Adept. It's a 1 red, Menace 1/2. Whenever you cycle or discard a card, Flamebane Adept gets +1/+0 until the end of turn. Obviously, this synergizes quite well with Hazoret, but I think this is a card that the deck definitely has to be built around. And we have a very small window of about 6 months where we can still use the Shadows over Innistrad block and Battle for Zendikar block cards in Standard. And obviously the Shadows over Innistrad block has a lot of cards with Madness and discard outlets that are both going to help Flameblade Adept and Hazoret the Fervent. Obviously we've got Archfiend of Ilfnir as well, which has cycling but also has synergy with discard and cycling. So I'm expecting to see some success from red-black discard and cycle decks in Standard quite quickly. We've got Limits of Solidarity. Pretty much every block or almost every set has one of these cards where you can take control of one of your opponent's creatures and attack. This has cycling, so I suppose in a matchup where this card isn't going to be used, at least you can get rid of it, which is the main drawback of these sort of cards. If your opponent's not playing any creatures, what are you going to do with it? So we've just got the last 4 cards here, the first of which we're going to look at is Trial of Knowledge. This looks like there's probably going to be a different trial for each colour. This card is an enchantment, it's 4 mana, it's blue. When it enters a battlefield, you draw 3 cards and discard a card, and then there is an additional ability on there which says that when a cartouche enters a battlefield under your control, return Trial of Knowledge to its owner's hand. Jumping over to the next card quickly, we'll talk about these 2 together. You've got Cartouche of Solidarity, which is 1 white. It actually has a type enchantment or a cartouche. Enchant creature you control. When Cartouche of Solidarity enters a battlefield, create a 1/1 white warrior creature token with vigilance. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has first strike. We've already seen some artwork which heavily suggests this is going to be a cycle, there's going to be a different cartouche for each colour. And obviously the Trial of Knowledge has synergy with cartouche enchants, so potentially then all the other trials will too. And that could be quite cool. You could play a 3-colour deck that plays 3 trials, 3 different cartouches that all synergise with each other. It looks like Wizards are definitely pushing for players to build a deck around the trials and cartouches. I'm actually wondering if there's going to be a Maze's End-esque win condition where if you control each of the trials or each of the cartouches, you can do something big or potentially just outright win the game. So right now I'm just quite excited to see the other cards in those cycles, and I'll potentially, depending on what they've released, I might actually make a video about those cards in particular. Then we've got Prepared and Fight, and I think these 2-part cards, I think Wizard wants us to refer to them as like Prepared to Fight. So far we've also seen Dusk to Dawn and Destined to Lead. So let me know in the comments if you agree, or maybe there's another word I'm missing there that could fit in between. Either way, Prepared, 1 colourless, 1 white, is an instant, untapped target creature, it gets +2/+2 and has lifelink until the end of turn. The other side is 3 colourless, 1 green, Fight, it's a sorcery, target creature you control fights target creature your opponent controls. This is basically just Prey Upon, but obviously again it synergises with the other side of the card. If you have 6 mana available, you can cast both sides at the same time, and you can give a creature +2/+2 lifelink and have it kill another creature. Last but definitely not least, we have Crocodile of the Crossing. It's 3 colourless, 1 green, it has haste and it's a 5/4. When it enters a battlefield, put a -1/-1 counter on target creature you control. What I love about this card again is its playability in Modern. I mean, in Standard we're already using a lot of -1/-1 counters, so maybe there's some way that you can use them to your benefit in Standard. But in Modern, in Green Stompy, there's definitely a way to do that, because we use creatures like Strangleroot Geist, which means it can die and come back again, and Experiment 1, which means Experiment 1 is going to gain a counter from this entering, but then gain 1 back. And a lot of the time, Experiment 1 has a cap anyway, so you don't really mind about like losing a +1/+1 because you'll just get it back on there within no time. That's it for now. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, give it the thumbs up. If you want to see some more, subscribe. Comment below on the sort of thing you'd like to see in future, or some ideas you have in how we could use these cards effectively. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.